Welcome, friend, to a slow and gentle space where the night stretches out softly around you, and the moon, quiet and unhurried, seems to breathe with the same rhythm as your own calm inhale and exhale. Imagine yourself resting beneath a window or lying comfortably in your bed, your body sinking into the fabric, your shoulders easing down as a pale glow lingers in the sky. The moon looks almost close enough to touch, yet it remains a calm companion, steady and silent, changing its shape so subtly that you barely notice until a few nights have passed. The world is unusually still, and the gentle rhythm continues, like a slow tide that carries your thoughts without urgency. If you feel safe and warm, you are already where you need to be. What city/country are you watching from right now? If this quiet is soothing, you can like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can drift along with us anytime. There is a playlist linked in the description that will keep guiding you through soft stories of science while you rest and doze, as if each episode were a long, comforting breath that gently slows the night. You find yourself gazing at the moon's face, perhaps a slim crescent tonight, or maybe a bright round disk. The change feels effortless, like a curtain slowly being drawn across a window, not abrupt, not dramatic. The moon is not truly changing shape. It only reveals a different portion of the side lit by the sun. The quiet you sense in this change comes from a simple geometry and from the profound hush of space itself. In the vacuum up there is no air to ferry sound, no breeze to carry a murmur or a rustle. The moon's transformation from crescent to full and back happens without a sound because there is nowhere for sound to travel, and because the change is not an event but a relationship. The sun shines, the moon reflects, and Earth watches, turning slowly as if listening to an old lullaby. Imagine yourself, maybe tonight, maybe a memory from long ago, stepping outside in a cool evening. The air is still. The smell of faint earth and distant leaves rests in the background, as if the world has exhaled. When the moon is a thin crescent, it seems like a scratch of light against the sky, and sometimes you can see the rest of the disk as a dim, ash-gray glow. That dim part is lit by earthshine, sunlight that reflects off our own bright planet and bathes the moon in a second-hand glow. You might imagine standing on the surface of the moon as a future traveler, seeing Earth and the sky shining brilliantly, casting a gentle light onto the gray dust at your feet. That secondary glow is the whisper of our world lighting the dark part of the moon you can barely see. It is a quiet exchange of light, a peaceful triangle between sun, earth, and moon, each in its place, each lending a soft glow to the others. The moon's phases follow a rhythm called the lunar cycle. It stretches across about 29.5 days, a soft spiral of time, a steady metronome of nights. New moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter, and all the delicate transitions in between. The cycle doesn't rush. It drifts forward, day by day, as patient as ocean swells that tie themselves to the moon's pull. The gentle rhythm continues, and if you ever feel the world move too quickly, you can let your attention move at lunar speed instead. A few degrees more of the sunlit side appear, then a few more, then a pause at full brightness, and then a retreat. Nothing cracks or snaps. It is the shadow line, the terminator, that does the most visible work. sliding slowly across craters and plains, laying down long shadows one night and lifting them the next. With binoculars, the Terminator looks like a fine thread of contrast where mountains on the moon cast long, dramatic, but silent shadows. It is a theater of light and dark, a stage without actors, and it unfolds so slowly that your eyes learn to cherish stillness. The moon that you see tonight is always the same moon, but you and the moon are arranged differently each day relative to the sun. The moon is tidally locked, meaning it keeps the same face turned toward Earth as it orbits. It spins on its axis in the same time it takes to go around us once. That double dance is exquisitely balanced, a gravity-born partnership that took shape long ago. Because of that lock, the face you know, the highlands and the dark mare plains, seems familiar and constant. The eyes of a face, some say, or a rabbit, or a woman carrying a bundle, depending on the stories you grew up with. The quiet comfort of recognition helps you feel at home, even as the light shifts and the shape of the lit part swells and shrinks. Imagine yourself tracing those shapes in your mind. The smooth, dark maria formed from ancient basaltic flows, the brighter highlands dusted with fine regolith. The soft powder on the moon was made by countless tiny impacts over eons, each grain sharpened by the absence of weather and water, yet all of it lying so still that you might imagine the sigh of a feather settling on a pillow if there were any air to carry a sound. When we say the moon changes shape quietly, it is a poetry born of physics. The quiet comes from vacuum, and from the even pace of orbital motion, and from the fact that phases are not about the moon itself changing, but about how you and it are lined up with the sun. Imagine your hand holding a small white ball under a lamp in a dim room. As you carry the ball around your body, sometimes you see a full glow on the ball's surface. Sometimes only a sliver, sometimes none at all. The ball has not changed. Your point of view and the lighting have. The moon's brightness, too, is a reflection. The moon does not glow on its own. It reflects sunlight with a quiet, pale efficiency. Its reflectivity is low, actually, darker than fresh snow by far, a little brighter than worn asphalt. But because the sun is strong and the night sky is dark, that reflection appears luminous. The opposition surge, when the full moon appears extra bright, because shadows in the lunar regolith shrink when the light is coming from directly behind you, adds a gentle, almost imperceptible boost. These subtle details are small, but together they form a soft fabric of understanding that lays lightly over your mind. You might notice that the full moon rises at sunset and stays up all night, while a thin crescent hugs the sunset glow and sets soon after. There is something soothing about that order. The full moon always stands opposite the sun, a kind of quiet embrace across the sky. The crescent lingers with the fading day, like a silver note at the edge of a lullaby. If you go out in the morning, you might find a waning crescent hanging low in the east, pale against a rose-tinged dawn. A small reminder that cycles continue, even when we're not looking. Birds stir softly. A leaf releases a tiny curl of dew, and the moon's curve thins night by night, never hurrying, always certain. Look closer, and the moon nods and wobbles a little, an effect called libration. This is a gentle rocking that lets us peek around the edges of the moon's familiar face. It is not dramatic. It is the difference between looking at a friend who tilts their head just slightly, letting you glimpse a little more of their profile. Over a month, the moon seems to sway in latitude and longitude, and in the way its distance shifts our perspective. Because of libration, attentive observers can see about 59% of the lunar surface over time, even though at any single moment, only about half of the near side is visible. The moon's slow nodding contributes to this feeling of quiet change, the sense that the sky is alive, yet in no rush. Far out from us, the moon is drifting away by a tiny amount each year, a whisper of motion measured in centimeters. Tides raised on Earth by the moon's gravity tug against our planet's rotation, ever so slightly slowing our spin, and in trade, the moon steals a touch of angular momentum and slips outward. A few centimeters per year is smaller than a fingernail's width across a month. It is the kind of motion you would never notice in a human lifetime, yet over geologic spans, it matters. The lunar cycle was shorter long ago. The days were shorter. The tides were different. All of this happened without sound or spectacle. Just the persistent, gentle pull of gravity doing what gravity always does. The gentle rhythm continues, even when we sleep. When you look at the moon at different phases, notice the character of shadows. At first quarter, the terminator runs down the middle of the moon's face, and mountains near that line throw long shadows that make their peaks look tall and dramatic. At full moon, the sun is shining straight onto the moon from behind you, and the shadows nearly vanish, so the surface looks flatter, the texture washed out, and bright rays from craters like Tycho spread like pale spokes. It can be comforting to know that more detail pops during crescent and quarter moons because of those shadows, while the full moon's broad brightness can lift the night but hide the subtleties. If you are watching to relax, this becomes a gentle metaphor. In soft, partial light, textures emerge. In bright, strong light, differences are smoothed. Both are beautiful in their own way, and each has its own quiet message. Earth's blue sky and the moon share a relationship through light scattering too. At moonrise, low on the horizon, the moon can look larger and a little warmer in color. This is the well-known moon illusion, and the effect of more atmosphere between your eyes and the moon. Rayleigh scattering and aerosols in the air lend a soft tint, a warm wash, especially at certain times of year. The moon doesn't actually swell, but your mind, built to judge distances and sizes by nearby objects and the horizon, tells you a gentle story. If you find yourself by an open window, the faint smell of night air and distant wood or garden soil may settle around you while you watch the moon rise. And this experience, familiar and steady, becomes part of your own private calendar. The moon has been a timekeeper for countless cultures. Months, the very word hints at moon, were built on its cycle. Farmers once watched the crescent return to plan planting and harvest. Sea travelers watched it to read tides, and priests marked festivals by counting nights to specific phases. Some calendars follow the moon nearly exactly, cycling through months of 29 or 30 days, floating through the seasons because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year. Others, like lunisolar calendars, gently adjust, adding days now and then to stay close to the sun's annual path, while still honoring the moon's rhythm. The Islamic calendar drifts through seasons, letting the crescent appear over different times of year, while the Hebrew calendar adds a leap month in some years, so that certain holidays continue to arrive in their proper season. All of these systems are careful conversations with the sky. The voices are soft and traditional, rather than loud and urgent. People looked up, listened in a sense, and kept time without clocks, trusting a gentle cycle they could see. When you think of the moon's quiet changes, the most dramatic events, eclipses, also reveal their softness when you watch closely. A lunar eclipse happens when Earth's shadow slides across the moon. Even then, there is no sound, because the event is a geometric alignment. The moon passes into the umbra, the darker core of our shadow, and the surface can turn a coppery red. Earth's atmosphere bends and filters sunlight around its edges, letting only redder wavelengths reach the moon. That dim glow spills across the lunar face, a calm ember color. If you imagine yourself lying back on a hill, a blanket tucked beneath your neck, a thermos warm by your side, the slow approach of the shadow feels like a soothing dimming of a light as you settle for rest. A solar eclipse, too, is quiet and precise, but that experience touches the sun, and for many, it brings a surge of emotion. For sleeping, it may be easier to stay with the gentle lunar eclipse in your mind, where the pace is drowsy and the hush is perfect. Even outside of eclipses, there are cycles layered on cycles. The Saros cycle, weaving a repeating pattern of eclipses over about 18 years, and the Metonic cycle, where the moon's phases recur on the same calendar dates every 19 years. These are subtle threads, easy to forget in the daytime, but they lie there in the sky, patient and reliable. The moon's subtle qualities include its albedo, the fraction of sunlight it reflects. The moon's global reflectivity is low, yet its regolith has tricky optical properties. The grains are sharp-edged and coated in tiny glass splashes from micrometeorite impacts. When sunlight hits at shallow angles near the terminator, shadows are long and contrast is strong. When the sun is head-on, near full moon, the opposition effect brightens the surface as shadows in the tiny grains disappear. The brightness change is gentle, perfectly suited to a bedtime thought. And across the face are differences in brightness because some areas are iron-rich and volcanic in origin, the Maria, and others are ancient highlands, paler because they are composed of different minerals with less iron. The dark Maria are widespread on the near side. The far side is more highlands and fewer Maria. That difference is the result of ancient events, of crust thickness variations and impacts long before any human looked up. If you think of the moon as a quiet museum of solar system history, its displays are arranged in gray tones and clean lines, and the only labels are the stars. Imagine yourself tracing the circular scars of craters like Copernicus and Tycho, their rays spreading out. Each crater tells of an impact, but tonight the story is not about violence or noise. The airless moon leaves every mark intact. There is no rain to blur edges, no wind to soften outlines, no rivers to wash away sediment. So the surface is layered like the pages of a very old book that has been read slowly, carefully, and never hurried. The newest craters sit atop older ones, sometimes offset or overlapping, quietly showing a timeline without dates or punctuation. If you hold the idea gently, without dwelling on the energy of impact, then the overall impression is about time's patience and the way the moon keeps records for us with serene impartiality. The moon you see tonight is at a particular angle relative to the sun, and its distance also varies over the month. The orbit is slightly elliptical, so sometimes the moon is closer, perigee, and sometimes farther, apogee. The difference is modest, but the full moon at perigee can seem a little larger, and people sometimes call it a supermoon. The word is big, but the experience is soft, an extra bit of brightness and size that is subtle and can become a quiet excuse to step outside for a few minutes. The tide levels rise a touch higher at perigee, the ocean's breathing aligning with the moon's closeness in a way that is as gentle as the pull on the hem of a sleeve. The gentle rhythm continues back and forth, night after night, as the moon coaxes the ocean a little on one side of Earth and a little on the other. The land, too, responds in tiny ways. Even you feel this pull, though it is too small to notice. It is a comfort to know that the same forces that hold a galaxy together and move planets around stars also lie quietly in the scene outside your window. Now imagine you are holding a small notebook, and each night you draw the moon from memory, a small circle that you shade to match what you see. Night by night, your pencil marks reveal the fattening gibbous, the crisp first quarter with its half-lit face, the slender waxing crescent like a softly curved smile. Your hand moves slowly. Later, you see the full moon's circle, then the thinning, waning gibbous, the last quarter, and the waning crescent that rises before dawn. The act of drawing becomes a lullaby for your hands, a ritual that ties your days together with threads spun from light. You add a note about how the air smelled, maybe like wet stone after a gentle rain, or like dry leaves in late summer, or how a nearby street sounded quieter than usual. You notice that the moon's position shifts eastward a little each night, rising about 50 minutes later each day. The habit becomes a tiny anchor, and you understand the quiet change in shape not as a mystery, but as a natural rotation through perspectives among you, the sun, and the moon. From different latitudes, the moon's behavior has accents. Near the equator, the crescent can look like a smile that rests on the horizon, the horns pointing up. Closer to the poles, the moon can move along a low path, and in some seasons it spends long hours above the horizon. The phases do not change their order, but the way the moon is oriented can feel different. This variety is soft and gentle. It makes the moon feel both universal and personal, the same for everyone and slightly unique for each of us. Even the well-known way to tell waxing from waning depends on where you are. In the northern hemisphere, a waxing crescent looks like a D to some eyes, and waning looks like a C. In the southern hemisphere, the impression reverses. But the lunar truth beneath it remains even and slow. The gentle rhythm continues, independent of our letters and symbols. If you have ever looked at the moon through a small telescope on a stable evening, you know the feeling of a seemingly still world with a living edge. Near the terminator, you can watch the mountains of the moon casting shadows that shift as minutes pass. You sense an almost imperceptible motion as the sun rises over mare and crater, and you know that somewhere night is falling on a lunar peak as another place sees dawn. The words you use to describe what you see become quiet. Ridge, plain, bay, sea. Mare tranquillitatis, mare imbrium, sinus iridum. The sea of tranquility, the sea of rains, the bay of rainbows. The names carry gentle poetry, old and careful. They give the moon the patience of maps and the softness of a bedtime story. Even the moon's slight color differences offer a quiet palette. To the naked eye, the moon is mostly gray and white, but subtle hues appear under good conditions. Some maria have a faint bluish tone because of titanium content, while other areas lean toward brown or tan. These colors are not overt. They are background notes in a musical piece played slowly, so softly you feel them more than see them. If you imagine the moon as a canvas, then each phase shines light from a new angle, revealing different strokes, different gently contoured shapes. The fullness verifies the roundness. The crescent highlights the edge. The quarters balance light and dark across the center, giving equal weight to each side. A quiet symmetry that comforts. You might think of the moon as a timekeeper, but also as a teacher of perspective. The phases are a lesson in geometry that you can absorb without a single equation. The moon orbits Earth, Earth orbits the sun, and your position at a given moment determines how much of the sunlit part you can see. During new moon, the moon is between you and the sun, so the lit side faces away from you, and the moon disappears into the daytime glare or sits as a dark silhouette near the sun's line. During first quarter, the moon is a quarter of the way around its orbit from the sun, from your point of view, appearing half-lit. At full moon, Earth is between the moon and the sun, and you see the entire sunlit side. Then the moon continues around, and the lit portion wanes. The cycle repeats with unhurried regularity. If you close your eyes and imagine this from above, you can see yourself on Earth turning, the moon revolving around, sunlight streaming straight from a distant sun, and the pattern of phases repeating, like the tide of your breath. There are long, slow variations that add to the moon's minuet. The line where the moon's orbit crosses the plane of Earth's orbit, known as the nodes, shifts over time, a precession that cycles over about 18.5 years. The distance of perigee precesses too, over about 9 years. These cycles adjust the details, like the way the moon's path tilts against the sun at different seasons, or how the moon can appear higher or lower in the sky when full in different years. Such patterns are soft and obscure to casual observation, but if you rest with them, they have the calming quality of a repeating hum. The more you listen for them, the more you feel the confidence of a clock that does not tick. It simply exists, quietly telling time through light. If you lift your eyes from the moon to think about the spaces in between, you can remember that there is no air in space to carry sound. And that is one reason the moon's changes feel so soundless. On Earth, a line of clouds passing across a sun might come with wind, a sound, a rustle in the leaves. On the moon, there are no leaves, no wind, no water. Only sunlight and shadow, only quiet dust, and the occasional subtle shift of temperature as day turns to night and back. The absence of weather makes the moon a serene world. From Earth, this serenity reaches you through the sense of quiet that accompanies watching phases. Even meteoroids that strike the moon do so in silence for us, visible sometimes as brief flashes to the cameras that watch the moon's night side, but without any echo to your ear. That silence is not empty. It is full of calm. When light reflects from the moon to your eyes, it travels across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, a short interplanetary journey measured in a little more than a second. The journey is instantaneous to your senses, but you can take comfort in the idea that your view arrives after a second's travel time. as if the moon were sending you a postcard with a tiny delay. You are never seeing the moon exactly as it is now, only as it was a moment ago. Even that small delay adds to the softness, a gentle separation that encourages reflection rather than urgency. The gentle rhythm continues, a second behind, then another second, each look guided by the past. When the moon is bright and high, its light can cast shadows on the ground. You might have seen your own shadow on a snowy field at midnight, or noticed the way fences and hedges draw faint lines in silver on summer nights. The light is crisp but not cold, and the world seems to hold its breath. Owls might call softly. A distant dog might bark once, then settle. Even when the moon is new and the nights are dark, the knowledge of its presence is part of the night's fabric. The moon is there, simply turned away, waiting to bring back the crescent. That sense of reliable return can be a place for your mind to rest, like a note played softly on a piano, allowed to ring, then fade, then return in a variation a little later. If you have ever looked at the moon from a city, you might notice how it appears and disappears between buildings as you walk. The moon can slide into view between two rooftops as if framing itself for you, then glide behind a tower and reappear in an alley. The evening air carries a different scent in the city, perhaps a hint of concrete cooling, a trace of distant food, and the moon adds a layer of gentle continuity to an urban rhythm. In the countryside, the moon's light falls on open fields and quiet water, and you can watch a silver path spread across a lake, trembling slightly with each small ripple. The feeling is similar in both places, a sense that the night is organized around a steady, tender light, and that the changes in the moon's shape are part of your own evening routine. It helps to remember that the moon's face we see has been shaped by deep time. The dark seas of basalt filled in old basins created by large impacts long ago. The fact that they are darker is because they contain minerals like iron and titanium. The highlands are older still, battered and bright with anorthosite. In the brilliance of the full moon, these differences recede a bit. In the crescents and quarters, they show up more. If you imagine running your fingertips across a relief map, you would trace the edges of these seas and the rims of craters, but with your eyes closed. Your mind's hand moves slow. The gentle rhythm continues, and your breath lingers with it. Some nights, thin clouds drift across the sky, soft and gauzy. The moon shines through, a halo forming as ice crystals refract the light into a circle. The halo is like a silent ring, a sign that the upper air is gently arranged with tiny prisms, lifting the moon's light into a simple geometry. This ring does not speak, it only is, a still flower in the night. On other nights, air steadiness can make the moon shimmer slightly, a quiver caused by the atmosphere's layers. Even then, the sense is one of lulling variation, a slow blur that encourages your mind to soften its edges too, to allow your thoughts to fade at the outline and become less crisp. As centuries passed, people told stories about the moon changing shape because a rabbit carried a burden of light, or a goddess hid part of her face, or a hero borrowed a piece of brightness for a time. These tales were gentle attempts to keep company with the moon's cycle, and though the scientific explanation is simpler, the mood of the old stories remains. The moon feels like a companion because it is steady enough to encourage loyalty and variable enough to reward attention. If you keep watching, the changes are always familiar. You never feel lost, even when the moon is hidden behind clouds. You know it will return when the sky clears and when the cycle brings the appropriate phase to your time of night. If you hold a globe, or even imagine a globe in your hands, think of Earth as a quiet sphere with oceans moving subtly under the influence of the moon. High tide and low tide advance around coastlines, the water breathing in and out while the moon draws its path above. The greatest tides come when the sun, moon, and earth line up at full and new moon. The smallest come when the moon is at first and last quarter, when the sun's pull and the moon's pull slant across each other. Spring tides and neap tides are not loud events. They are the soft emphasis and de-emphasis of an ongoing motion. If you live near the sea, you know the smell of salt in the air and the way the shoreline changes quietly by the hour. The moon's phases are one side of the story, and tides are the other, together composing a duet with no sharp edges. There is a gentle symmetry in knowing that humans once walked on the moon, leaving footprints that remain because there is no wind to erase them. Those prints are still there, dust layered upon dust, motionless. When you look at the moon, you might think about those steps in a distant decade, a demonstration that the connection between Earth and Moon is not only visual, but also physical. The technology that made those journeys is complex, but you can hold the feeling simply. A calm idea that the world you live on and the moon you look at are separate, yet joined. The moon remains silent, barely perturbed by visitors, and its phases continued, unbothered, through those years and through all the years since. On nights when the moon is a thin crescent, a soft tradition invites people to look for it as the first sign of a new month or to mark a holiday. The first crescent appears low in the west shortly after sunset, and it can be challenging to see the small arc through the fading light. Waiting and watching for that faint curve becomes a meditative practice. You look harder, then softer, and the moon reveals itself more easily when your mind relaxes. The experience teaches a small lesson in patience, and the sight of that slender light brings a gentle satisfaction, like the first star of the evening making itself known. If you have ever stood in a quiet place with a wide horizon, the moon's rise can feel like a slow unveiling. First, a sliver peeks over the edge of the world, then more. Then the entire circle is free. The line of trees or buildings gently frames this motion. When the moon is low, you see it through more atmosphere, and it may look a little more yellow or orange. It moves upward, gaining brightness and losing that warm tint, then climbs into a darker blue, and finally a deep, velvety black. You can imagine the moon as a lantern lifted by an invisible hand, though there is no hand, only the smooth, predictable rotation of Earth. The gentle rhythm continues as you watch, and your own breathing shifts to match it, slower and calmer. There are quiet illusions that love the moon. The moon illusion makes the moon look larger near the horizon. Your mind, comparing the moon to distant trees and houses, whispers that the moon is bigger, though it is not. You can test it by covering it with your thumb or a pencil eraser at arm's length, and you will see that it covers the same amount of your vision, whether low or high. Knowing this does not dispel the pleasant surprise. Belief and measurement can sit side by side in peace, like two friends on a bench watching a lazy river pass by. The moon is the same size all the time from Earth, but your feelings about it change, and that is part of the quiet poetry of perception. In all of these scenes, the moon's truth is steady. It changes shape so quietly because there is no sound to change the shape of light, because the change itself is just the gradual turn of an orbit. If you close your eyes, you can sense the sun shining from one direction, the moon traveling through a path that carries it around Earth, and Earth turning so that your view of the moon arrives from a different angle each night. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be rushed. The orbit is an armchair that never rocks too fast. The light, a blanket that does not slip. Deep within the moon, the interior has cooled over time. The world is not geologically dead, but it is quiet, with only occasional tremors, the moonquakes, often caused by tidal stresses as the moon's shape flexes a little under Earth's pull, or by temperature changes as the moon passes from day to night. These tremors exist without the drama we associate with earthquakes, and they are part of the moon's slow conversation with gravity and light. They are measured by instruments, not by ears, and they add to the feeling that the moon's life is patient and understated. When you think of the moon's orbit, imagine a slightly tilted circle. The tilt is about 5 degrees relative to Earth's path around the sun. That small angle is why lunar eclipses do not occur every full moon, and solar eclipses do not happen every new moon. Only when the alignment puts the moon near the nodes does the geometry line up perfectly. Even this tilt contributes to the quiet texture of lunar life. If every full moon meant an eclipse, the sky would have more frequent spectacles. Instead, special alignments arrive at a gentle pace, a reminder that patience is baked into the mechanics of the cosmos. On the scale of perception, the moon's flight around Earth fits with daily life. You can wake before sunrise and catch a waning moon hanging above, either a half circle or a delicate sliver, soft against a pale blue sky. You might be making tea, your hands wrapped around a warm mug, and you glance up to see the moon's curve, reassuring and familiar. You carry that glimpse with you into the day, and when night falls, the moon returns in a different shape. The continuity has a kind of kindness to it. It says that no matter how busy the day, some things unfold at a gentler pace and require nothing from you except presence. Astronomers who study the moon speak of details like albedo, regolith, basaltic plains, highlands, ejecta, rays, secondary craters, and phase angles. These words explain what your eyes already feel. They are like names for shades of gray in a soft painting. The bond albedo measures the fraction of total sunlight reflected, while the geometric albedo tells how bright the moon appears at opposition compared to a perfect diffuser. These ideas are refined and useful, but at bedtime you do not need to hold them tightly. Let them drift past like soft, well-shaped clouds, each carrying a little content and then dissolving at the edges. When the moon approaches first quarter, it sets around midnight. If you happen to be awake during those hours, the half-lit moon feels like a nightlight for the world. Not too bright, not too dim. Full moonlight can be bright enough to read by in a quiet room if you sit near a window. But most often you will simply notice how objects cast shadows, and how your mind makes room for sleep even in this faint glow. Curtains can soften this light. Your eyelids are gentle curtains too, lowering slowly as you listen to the even tones of a voice. The gentle rhythm continues, breathing in, breathing out. As the moon wanes, it rises later, appearing after midnight and growing thinner by dawn. The waning crescent is a contemplative sight. It belongs to the morning, a slender smile encouraging calm. Some people prefer the waxing crescent that follows the new moon in the evening, because it is an invitation after the work of the day. Others favor the waning crescent because it whispers of closure and rest. If you choose to notice such preferences, do so lightly. Let them be small anchors rather than rules, little friendly agreements between your mood and the sky. Tonight, perhaps, you imagine standing by a quiet body of water under a gibbous moon. A faint breeze moves reeds at the shore, making a soft, shushing sound. The water reflects the moon as a shimmering, quivering path. Each ripple breaks the reflection into tiny pieces, then stitches them back together. A moth flits briefly through the light, a momentary dark flutter against a silver sheen. This scene is neither dramatic nor dull. It is gently balanced, slow, and forgiving. The moon above you is near full, and its face is a familiar pattern. High up, it moves so steadily that you could forget it is moving at all. But if you watch for an hour, you see the shift, the quiet progression in the sky's compass. The moon changes shape so quietly that sometimes you only realize it when it is well along. A week ago, you remember, it was only a crescent. Now it is round and bright. This slow reveal is part of its charm. It is a friend who does not demand your attention, but is glad when you notice. The understanding carries into other parts of life, whispering not to rush. The moon says that it is enough to show up, to attend, and to let the story write itself in thin lines of light over many calm nights. Beneath the surface of the moon, there is a story of heat and cooling, of volcanism that once filled ancient basins with dark lava. That activity mostly ended long ago, and what remains is quiet. If you could stand there and turn around, you would see Earth suspended in the sky, sometimes full and bright, sometimes a crescent, sometimes new and dark against the stars. As the moon keeps one face toward Earth, an observer on the near side would see Earth nearly stationary in the lunar sky, wobbling slightly with libration, going through its own phases. The light would rise and fall, the continents and clouds turning below. The Earth would be a blue and white jewel, with hints of brown and green, far brighter than the moon appears to us. Earthshine would cast a soft glow over your boots and the dust at your feet. Your shadow, sharp in the sun, would soften in Earthlight. This reversal helps you understand why the moon's shaded portion is sometimes dimly visible along with the crescent. It is a gentle mirror of your own world's presence. Through many centuries, artisans and scientists mapped the moon from Earth. Telescopes grew slowly more capable, not with explosions of noise, but with careful improvements. Polished lenses, better mirrors, steadier mounts, all of it methodical and patient. You can imagine someone in a dim observatory, logs open beside the eyepiece, hand moving slowly over a page, labeling features. The names are still with us: Aristarchus, Plato, Clavius, Grimaldi, Mare Serenitatis, Oceanus Procellarum. They roll softly in the mouth, old and low in tone, like instruments in a late-night composition. Above, the moon's exosphere, the very thin atmosphere of the moon, is a ghost of a thing, practically nothing. A few atoms and molecules hover near the surface, kicked up by particle interactions and solar wind. They settle again. This near-nothingness is another reason why the moon keeps its scars, why the light falls so purely, and why the changes in shape feel so quiet. Everything about the moon invites calm observation rather than quick reaction. The moon's role in culture has also been gentle and pervasive. Poets write of it as witness. Lovers mark time by it. Navigators use it to measure distance and position, and children draw it as a bright friend with a smile. The moon's unhurried cycle presents itself like a story told at twilight, without urgency. When you think about those who watched it before you, and those who will watch it later, you sense a continuum. You are part of a chain of quiet watchers. The moon connects the nights across centuries. The gentle rhythm continues. If you let your thoughts drift toward how the moon formed, a prevailing idea is that a long-ago collision in the early solar system lofted material into orbit around Earth, which later coalesced into the moon. Hold this idea lightly. You do not need to feel the energy of that impact. Just think of the result. A companion world that settled into its place and has stayed, rounding out Earth's life with tides, with stability in our planet's axial tilt, and with a glowing presence that you can see from almost anywhere. The deep past unfolds into a present night, where the moon's shape changes quietly, because the precise dance among sun, earth, and moon never forces a hurry. Imagine the gentle line of the Terminator moving across the mare of tranquility, across the highlands, revealing peaks and valleys like a person drawing aside a sheer curtain, letting light spill into a room. The speed is slow, but you could time it. Over an hour, the line shifts noticeably, casting a mountain's shadow a little shorter. On another night, the line hides the same mountain until another cycle. If you like, you can align yourself with that motion by breathing in for a count and breathing out for a longer count, letting your internal rhythm match the moon's patience. If you step back into your room now and let your gaze soften, you can imagine that the moon is moving you closer to rest. Your eyelids feel heavier, and your body grows quieter. The science remains, but it hums in the background. The facts become familiar furniture in a dim and comfortable room, nothing sharp, nothing obtrusive. The gentle rhythm continues, and each small detail of lunar behavior becomes another gentle reassurance that the universe works with patience. Around the midpoint of this quiet journey together, you can pause just long enough to share one small thought before we drift deeper. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? As your answer forms softly in your mind, we return to the sky, where the moon continues its untroubled cycle. You might consider how the moon's gravity also affects Earth's rotation. Over millions of years, the length of a day has slowly increased. The Earth's spin gently losing speed as energy is transferred to the moon's orbit. This interplay is the subtlest of clocks, the kind that requires no ticking, the kind you never hear. Meanwhile, the moon's average distance from Earth grows by a few centimeters per year, a drift that is almost impossible to feel, but easy to accept. You can think of it as the space between two friends on a bench who lean back comfortably and settle into their own stories while staying close enough to share the view. When the moon is hidden from your night sky, perhaps because it is new and near the sun's glare, or because the sky is overcast, you may find that you miss its gentle presence. Even then, the knowledge of its cycle can be comforting. You can picture where the moon is in its path. You know when it will return to your evening window,
and what shape it will wear when it does. That knowing is a soft cushion beneath your thoughts. The moon's change is a dependable rhythm, and dependability itself can be soothing. The gentle rhythm continues night by night, whether you look up or not. If you hold a cup of something warm, perhaps a mild tea or simply warm water, you can sip as if you are tasting moonlight. Of course, the light is cold and distant, but the sensation of warmth in your hands helps you imagine that the moon is a familiar lamp in your own home, emitting a mellow light just for you.
The vessel warms your palms, the scent rises lightly, and your breathing slows. There is no rush to understand everything. You only need to rest in the comfort of a dependable cycle. The moon's phases are the soft turning of a page. There are small practical things the moon has done for us. Historically, the timing of full moons gave farmers light to work late. The walking traveler could navigate fields and paths by its glow. In winter, when the full moon lay on snow, a quiet brightness made the world feel clean and spacious. These practical notes do not disturb the hush. They only deepen it. The moon supports the quiet work of night, the quiet rest of those who sleep, the quiet games of those who watch the shadows on their walls. In art and photography, the moon teaches contrast. If you try to capture the moon with a camera, you learn that it is much brighter than the night around it. The exposure for the moon's surface is similar to daylight scenes because it reflects the sun so directly. If you expose for the moon, the surrounding landscape becomes dark. If you expose for the land, the moon becomes a bright blur. This is not a problem. It is a lesson in choice and focus, a calm reminder that you do not need to hold everything in perfect balance at once. You can let some details go and hold others close, just as in life. The moon's path across the sky changes over the month and through the year. In some seasons, a full moon takes a high, steep arc across the night. In others, it skims the horizon, lingering low and casting long shadows. Your own position on Earth shapes how you see this too. In northern latitudes in winter, the full moon rises high, since it mirrors the sun's path in summer. The moon becomes a soft substitute for the missing long days, offering light that is gentler but present nonetheless. In summer, the full moon hangs low, and its light is more easily blocked by trees and houses. That variation of path adds a calm fluctuation to your nightly observations. If you picture the dark part of the moon during a crescent, remember the ash-gray light, the earth shine that reveals it. In those moments, Earth is providing the moon with a quiet, second-hand glow. The same would be true from the moon, where Earth would sometimes look almost full and bright, lighting lunar nights in a way the moon lights ours. These reflections help you feel the bond between Earth and moon as a continuous loop of light. The gentle rhythm continues from sun to earth to moon and back again in your mind. Sometimes the heart finds rest in tiny facts. The lunar cycle averages about 29.53 days. The tilt of the moon's orbit is about 5 degrees. The average distance to the moon is around 384,400 kilometers, with small variations. Light takes a little over a second to travel that distance. The moon's synchronous rotation means it rotates once relative to the stars in about 27.3 days. But because Earth is moving around the sun, the full cycle of phases, all the way from new to new, takes that slightly longer 29.5 days. Holding these small numbers can be like holding a set of smooth pebbles in your hand while you sit by a river. You do not need them for any immediate purpose. You simply enjoy the feel of them. In very ancient times, our ancestors watched the moon as part of their survival, but they also watched it for comfort and meaning. Some carved its phases into bones or rock, tallying nights. The regularity offered reassurance in a world where many things were uncertain. Even now, with electric light and clocks and schedules, you can reclaim a small piece of that primal ease by looking up and noting where the moon is in its cycle. The gentle rhythm continues, and with it comes the reminder that natural time is not frantic or harsh. It is unspooled at a walking pace. The moon can help you consider the nature of shadows. On the moon, shadows are sharp because there is no air to diffuse light. On Earth, our air scatters light, softening shadows and tinting them. The moon's terminator is a knife-edge line in telescopes, but even that edge reveals subtle gradations if you look carefully. These variations are about angles and textures, not about loudness. No sound accompanies a shadow's shortening on the moon. It is a geometry lesson you can feel in your bones, translated into the language of calm. Beyond the phases, the moon has moods defined by context. A thin crescent near a slim planet like Venus becomes a romantic scene in some minds, but beyond the sentiment is a small, precise alignment that places two bright bodies together. The pairing is transient, arriving and leaving with silent grace. Conjunctions like this are gifts of perspective. They are gentle invitations to pause, step outside, and look up at the sky as if it were a soft, living poem that doesn't mind if you read only a line or two before sleep. In the stillness of night, the moon becomes a friend that says very little but speaks volumes. If you are the kind of person who falls asleep to soft voices and peaceful explanations, you may find that the more you learn about the moon, the more restful it becomes. Knowledge here is not an alarm. It is a blanket. Each fact tucks you in, each explanation smooths the sheets, and the moon itself turns down the lights. Should you ever worry about the moon's change in shape, let that worry dissolve into understanding. The moon is not thinning or swelling in any dangerous way. Its shape is constant. What changes is what you can see, and that is where the magic lies. You and the moon and the sun are aligned in ever-changing patterns, predictable and serene, and the result is a series of nights with softly shifting light. This is a pattern that will outlast you and me, a pattern that has outlasted vast stories already, a pattern that the sea follows and that the plants register in their own quiet ways. If you think of your own routines, going to bed, waking, making tea, reading a few pages, calling a friend, you see how gentle rhythms shape your life too. The moon's rhythm is a familiar cousin to those. It is not spectacular. It is sustaining. When the world seems to move too fast, you can return to the moon to find a pace you can trust. You do not need to catch up with it. It will come back around. It will meet you where you are, whether you can name its phase or not. Tonight, perhaps you are tired in a way that wants a lullaby. Let the moon provide one. Imagine the crescent, thin as a strand of silk, resting low in the west. A soft wash of color from the last sunlight glows behind it. As the sky darkens, stars appear one by one, like notes in a slow song. The moon lingers, then sinks behind the horizon. The night deepens. Much later, a different moon rises, a waning gibbous maybe, quiet
and sure. The gentle rhythm continues. No rush, no demands. If you have ever kept a small plant by the window, you know how it turns toward the light.
You know how it responds without noise. The moon is not light in the sense a plant needs, but it is a reminder that there is a soft conversation happening all the time between light and life. Animals move by moonlight. Night-blooming flowers open. The human mind, too, tunes itself to cycles larger than our own plans. If you let yourself, you can fall asleep with the moon as a companion, letting its slow transformations carry you like a current. In the end, the reason the moon changes shape so quietly is that the universe rarely shouts when it can whisper. Light moves, bodies orbit, shadows shift. Space gives room for these things to happen without fuss. The absence of air keeps the stillness total. The phases mark time with so little intrusion that you forget you are being guided. When morning comes, you may remember only the soft glow through your window and the gentle tug of an invisible tide that matched your breathing. Now, as we drift toward the close of this quiet journey, feel how safe and comfortable you are. Your pillow supports the shape of your head. Your blanket finds the right weight on your legs and shoulders. The air in your room is just the temperature that your body trusts. Somewhere above, whether seen or hidden, the moon is where it should be, and its slow, silent change of face continues with absolute reliability. You can return to it whenever you like, and it will welcome you with familiar light. Thank you for sharing this gentle time. If this calm brought you rest, you can like the video and subscribe so we can keep releasing peaceful episodes this often. The playlist in the description will keep playing softly if you prefer to drift off with a few more stories while you sleep. For now, you are safe, you are warm, and the quiet moon is keeping you company. Good night, and may the gentle rhythm continue as you rest.